Matt Lewis Urban. Most decorated soldier in WW2. Matt Urban was born August 25, 1919. Matthew Lewis Urbanowicz in Buffalo, New York to Stanley and Helen Urbanowicz, Polish immigrants. Urban majored in history and government with a minor in community recreation at Cornell University in Ithaca, New York, and graduated on June 14, 1941 with a Bachelor of Arts degree using the name Mattiel Urbanowicz. While at Cornell University, he was a member of the Reserve Officers Training Corps, ROTC, and the track and boxing teams. Beginning at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, Urban served as a platoon leader. Urban first went into combat when he made the beach landing under fire with another soldier on a raft during the invasion of North Africa, Operation Torch of the North Africa Campaign on November 8, 1942. Along with a Purple Heart, one of the first medals he received was a Silver Star. While serving with the 2nd Battalion, 60th Infantry, he was wounded 7 times. A member of his unit, Sergeant Earl G. Evans wrote, "The major, only a lieutenant at the time, was wounded in Maknessi, Tunisia and refused to be evacuated." He followed up this refusal by taking out a combat patrol. At another time in Tunisia, our battalion successfully halted a German counterattack, and it was through the major's efforts that we succeeded. As our outfit was falling back, the major held his ground and grabbed the closest German. He killed him with a trench knife, took the German's machine pistol, and fired at the onrushing enemy. The Germans counterattacked and Urban was wounded by grenade shrapnel. After Africa, he was with his unit 6 days after landing at Normandy when the company attacked German positions near Renouf, France. They were hit by heavy enemy small arms and tank fire. Urban found a bazooka and persuaded an ammo carrier to accompany him through the hedgerows to a point near the tanks. Exposing himself to the enemy, he knocked out both tanks, and the company moved forward and routed the enemy. Later that day, while advancing near Orgeles, Urban was struck in the leg by direct fire from a 37mm tank gun. Wounded twice, he was evacuated to England for treatment. While recovering, he learned that his unit, which had taken severe losses in the hedgerows of France, was lacking for experienced combat officers. He left the hospital and, still limping, hitchhiked his way back to his unit near Saint-Lô, France. Operation Cobra, July 25 to 31, 1944, was about to commence. Urban arrived at 2nd Battalion HQ to find that the company was checked by strong enemy opposition. He located an intact tank, but without a tank commander or gunner, it was not moving. Slowed by his leg wound, he ran through enemy fire and mounted the tank, taking over its machine gun in the turret. He ordered the tank to advance and fired on the Germans. His actions energized the battalion, who resumed the offense and destroyed the enemy position. On August 2nd, Urban was wounded in the chest by shell fragments that narrowly missed his heart. He again refused to be evacuated to a hospital. On August 6th, Major Max L. Wolfe, the 2nd Battalion commander, was killed in action near Cherbourg, France. And Urban, only 24 years old, assumed command of the battalion. Urban was wounded again on August 15th, but remained with his unit. On October 2nd, he was promoted to major. He was later promoted to battalion executive officer and battalion commander of the 60th Infantry Regiment, 9th Infantry Division, Old Reliables. Beginning in October 1945, he was a staff writer and later an editor for Liberty Magazine's Liberty, 1924. 1950, Veterans View Bulletin until October 1947, he was medically retired from the U.S. Army in February 1946. During this time, he was promoted to Lieutenant Colonel, October 2, 1945, and changed his legal name from Matty Urbanowitz to Matt Urban. In early 1979, a Michigan Disabled American Veterans DAV regional service representative who had come to know Urban personally over a long period of time sent an official Medal of Honor recommendation inquiry to U.S. Army headquarters. The misplaced MH recommendation for Urban was found and revealed that Major Max L. Wolfe, Urban's battalion commander in France, had initiated a Medal of Honor recommendation for Urban just prior to Major Wolfe being killed in action in France in July 1944. In 1980, by the direction of the President, the Department of the Army awarded Matt Urban the Medal of Honor in the name of the Congress. On July 18, 1980, he was presented the Bronze Star Medal, 2nd Oak Leaf Cluster, the Legion of Merit, and the Purple Heart, 6th Oak Leaf Cluster, by the U.S. Army, and the Croix de Guerre with Silver Gilt Star, by a representative from France during a special ceremony at the Pentagon. On July 19, President Jimmy Carter presented to Matt Urban the Medal of Honor in front of several hundreds of guests, which included fellow 60th Infantry veterans who witnessed Urban's actions in combat. After the war, Urban moved to Michigan, where he served as Recreation Director for Port Huron for 7 years, then Director of the Monroe Community Center for 16 years. His last job was Director of the Civic and Recreation Department of Holland, Michigan. He retired in 1989. His death on March 20, 1995 was a result of complications from a collapsed lung brought on by one of his 7 war wounds. Lieutenant Colonel Urban received a total of 29 awards and decorations, including the Silver Star, 1 OLC, Bronze Star, 2 OLC, with V. Device, Purple Heart, 6 OLC, NYS Conspicuous Cross with 4 silver and 1 gold clusters, culminating in the Congressional Medal of Honor presented in 1980. Urban died on March 4, 1995, in Holland, Michigan. The cause of death was a collapsed lung, reportedly due to his war injuries. He is buried in Plot, Section 7A, Grave 40 at Arlington National Cemetery in Arlington, Virginia, with the statement, Lieutenant Colonel Matt Urban, World War II infantry officer who earned the distinction as the most decorated soldier in WW2 Inch.